This is June 14th, 2015, and I'm Everett Nichols, a member of the Oral History Committee. Today I'm talking with Bill Miller and Margaret Peacock about their experiences with the Bolivian mission, one of our outreach programs at First Presbyterian Church. Welcome, Bill and Margaret, to this program. Before turning to our main topic, I'd like to get a little background on each of you as to what your relationship has been with the church. So, Margaret, if it's okay, we'll start with you and then follow up with Bill. When did you join the church?
I joined the church in the mid-1980s, and I've been very active in the church through the years. I'm an inactive elder now, so I've been an elder and a deacon. Involved in the Rick Brand Sunday School class earlier in the Tom Albright class, member of Chancel Choir, and worked heavily with the Korean and Bolivian mission.
Great. And what attracted you to the church in the first place?
I guess it would be Dr. Edwards, seeing him on TV, and my college roommate was a Presbyterian. When we were in college, we'd go to the Presbyterian church, and so I knew that's what I wanted to do when I got out of college. So I was drawn to First Church and never left.
And did you mention where you went to college?
I went to East Carolina.
East Carolina, okay, very good. So when you came to Raleigh for the first job, well, you heard the Scottish brogue minister and decided to look him up.
I sure did.
Well,
I knew it would be a Presbyterian church, and this is the one I knew was home.
Right. Well, it was our gain to have you joining us, and thank you for it. Bill, I'll ask you the same question. You're not a native North Carolinian, I don't believe. You. What brought you to our great state and city?
Well, I got my PhD in biochemistry, and then started looking for jobs. And I got a job at North Carolina State University and came here. So in 1976, in '76 we joined the Western Boulevard Presbyterian Church. It was easy to get to, and we lived in Cary. And then after about 23 years there, we came down here, First Presbyterian Church. We knew Sheila Barrick and Ed Stock had come out to talk with us, and things were a little different in Western Boulevard, so we decided to join here, and that was in the year 2000. Just when the last Korean exchange took place here.
Sure.
So I fell right into that.
Well, great.
So a job brought me here.
Yes, we're glad that you came, and glad that you and Laura joined the church, and the whole family, of course, not only Laura. In what way, in what way or ways has the First Presbyterian Church enhanced your growth and development over the years? We'll start Margaret and then follow up with Bill.
I found my love for mission here. I went on that first trip to Gwangju, Korea, and that's when I really experienced mission and saw the effects of the Southern Presbyterian missionaries going to Korea and establishing the hospitals and the schools, the churches, and I saw what it meant to them, and I came back a changed person. And that, to me, was one of the most important events for me here, spiritually. And then, my relationship in Sunday school classes with people, being on the DAG and the session, it just strengthened my love for this church and its people and the outreach that it provides.
Well, we are a warm church, or we try to be, and we do have great outreach ministry here, so it appeals to all of us. Bill, what about you? How were you? How was your spiritual growth affected by this church?
Well, I didn't get into it, but at Western Boulevard we'd had a change of ministers, and there was a long time where there was an interim minister, and then they spent a long time trying to get a regular minister who was new to the whole field. A lot of the people at the church didn't seem to be participating, but it was a community church, so they were just kind of just keeping things just copacetic. But I wanted to go, I wanted to be more involved. I'd always been involved with youth programs and in the choir and doing different things. So it was just the waters were too calm there, so I decided to come down here at First Presbyterian Church where the waves were moving. and I did get involved in the Korean mission when I was here. I just finished teaching a course in Taiwan on biotechnology at the University of Taidao. And I got excited about the people over in Southeast Asia who were really interested in the United States, interested in learning as much as they could. And I said, well, I wasn't going to be invited back to Taiwan, so when the Korean mission came up, Korean Bolivian mission came up, I said, well, I've never been to Korea, maybe I'll go to Korea and see what Korea is like. So that got me involved in mission, directly involved in mission.
Very good.
Problem with Presbyterian Church, I've been a Presbyterian all my life. So I remember walking with my dad down, I was about 5 years old, walking to the church in Philadelphia. And most Presbyterian churches, or many of them, don't do mission directly. They go through the General Assembly, they give money to the church in general, and the General Assembly disperses it. So you give money here, and then somebody does the work for you. It's like subcontracting mission. Here, though, there was a chance to do mission directly, and that appealed to me.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Well, I think that appeals to a lot of us, the hands-on part of missions here.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Korea. You mentioned what it's meant to you, Margaret. How about beginning by telling us a little bit of the history of how we got involved in the Bolivian mission?
Okay. Well, actually, it started with our cultural exchange with the Sunam Church in Gwangju, Korea. Dr. An, the pastor at the Sunam Church, and Dr. Nam, who was an elder and active in missions there, wrote Dr. Youngil Cho at the Raleigh Presbyterian Church. Dr. Cho was also moderator of the PCUSA, and they wanted to have a relationship with an American church. And Dr. Cho contacted Dr. Stock, and Dr. Stock was interested in pursuing this relationship. And in doing so, he asked Catherine Hardy if she would be the emissary to go over to the Sunam Church and just check it out, see what they wanted to do, how they would like to have a relationship with us. Before they went, Catherine and Dr. Stock and Dr. Cho met over at the Velvet Cloak and had a lunch and discussed this proposition. And it went through the session to approve this cultural exchange. And so Catherine went over there in April of 1996, I believe. So it actually began in 1995, October 1995, and Catherine went over in 1996.
So that's 20 years ago.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
This is
yes.
a long term
Absolutely.
commitment.
And so it started out as a cultural exchange, and we hosted the first the Koreans here in July, August of 1996. We had 14 to come. We had adults and young people as well, high schoolers. And the following year, we had about 20 from First Presbyterian that went over to Gwangju, and we stayed 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a wonderful experience to start the relationship, and that's what you have to do first, is build a relationship. But all along, Dr. Nam and Dr. An were looking for a partnership for the Bolivian mission. And that came in 1998 when Dr. Stock went over and had a visit for a few days, and Aaron Kesterson went over as well. And during that visit, the Sunam leaders gave Dr. Stock a plaque that said that this was commemorating the partnership with the Bolivian mission. So it started then, but it took until maybe 2000 before we actually
Before we
started
got
building.
them to go to Bolivia.
Sure.
Yeah, before we
Right.
started building that relationship with Bolivia.
So our first mission was in what, 2000?
That we started pursuing the Bolivian part.
Correct, yes.
But this had taken a lot of thought on the Korean church's part.
Sure.
They had Dr. On had a minister, a Korean minister, or missionary down in Bolivia, and he wanted to support him. And so he sent Dr. Nam down there. Dr. Nam's in a wheelchair. He doesn't know Spanish. So here's a man going in a wheelchair all the way from Korea to Bolivia, doesn't know the language, and except he knew Korean, and to evaluate the Korean missionary down there. It turns out there were 3 Korean missionaries in Bolivia at that time, in Santa Cruz. And the missionary that Dr. On originally wanted to support didn't know the language very well, didn't communicate with the people too much. And there was another missionary, a Korean missionary, who didn't do that very well either. But Reverend Moon was a star. He worked in the cocaine fields, converting people. He'd started 25 churches, 1 church for every year that he'd been there. That's a huge amount of work for a person to do. And he knew Spanish well. He was very dynamic. He could walk into a kindergarten room, and the kindergartners would open their eyes and they'd be excited. And he knows the people in the highest levels of government. And he used to preach to the police down in Santa Cruz. So Dr. Nam went back and told Dr. On that Reverend Moon was the person that they should support. That he had this base of converts down there. He preached the word, and that would be the person to back. So that all started. That was all done before they even invited us to join with them.
Sure.
So that started around 1994?
That would have been, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they had been engaged with the Bolivian mission for a few years before engaging with us in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And they had started to build a school down there. Reverend, when the missionaries from the United States went to Korea, the strategy was that you bring the Word, you bring the Bible, you teach them about Jesus Christ, then you bring them education. Because Christ wants you to be the best you can be, and you need to be educated if you're going to do that. And then also bring them health care. And that's what the missionaries from the United States did in Korea. And so that's what the Koreans wanted to do with Bolivia.
Yeah.
They shared that same model.
Right.
So Reverend Moon had provided the leadership in bringing the word to the people.
Correct.
And the Sunan Church then gave him the wherewithal to have the school. So they built the school. They spent about $350,000 by when we started to join.
Mm-hmm.
But then they asked us to come and help with the school and also with health care.
Now tell us a little bit about the school. We've been supporting some of the children in the school with scholarships for a number of years. Tell us a little bit about the Eden School and the relationship with Dr. Moon.
Okay, right. You want me to take it?
Yeah, either one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I was one of the first ones to go down there. I was the first one to go down there with Garrett Briggs and Betty Jordan.
Right.
And we spent time to kind of evaluate. And Dr. Briggs had been he'd been dean of the School of Physical and Mathematical Sciences at North Carolina State University. Then he became president of Peace College.
Right.
So he was an educator and knew a lot about education. I was in biochemistry, so I knew a lot about education. And Betty Jordan was a DCE, so she knew a lot about Presbyterian protocol and education. So we went down to evaluate the school based on the educational. Is it a good school?
Right.
And we found out that a lot of schools there in Bolivia, they were government run, they were poor. They would put like 3 or 4 age groups in one class room, and apparently sometimes the teacher would just come in the public schools and put a tape recorder there and then walk out. So the public education was not good. But at the Eden School, they spent a lot of time and were working with the students. Each age group had their own classroom, and the education looked really good there. It was Christian oriented. In the public schools, they looked chaotic. In this school, at the Eden School, it looked like an oasis. I mean, it was called the Eden School because it was after the Garden of Eden. And when you actually rode into the school, or came into the school, it looked like a Garden of Eden compared to the surroundings in Bolivia. So,
So it was established in a rather poor area of the city,
yeah,
I guess.
dogs
Yeah.
and horses eating garbage out of garbage bags,
Sure.
just right across the street.
Right.
It's a poor country. The average salaries then was about $1,500 a year. So that's we're talking pretty poor. So we decided that the education was going to be fine. And Dr. Briggs, we were trying to figure out how do you help. We didn't want to invest in the buildings yet. Buildings come and go, but when you invest in human people, then that lasts forever. And so Dr. Briggs suggested that we start a scholarship program. And it was like $170 to give a child an education for an entire year. They start at 8:30 in the morning, go to 12:30 noon. So that's appealing. That's appealing to, you can, if you tried to support a student in the United States, it'd be $8,000 a year. If you support a student down there, it's $170. Now it's about $400 a year. But you give a child this huge opportunity to get an education, a quality education, in a Christian-oriented setting. And it also gave Reverend Moon a platform to interact with the parents and the grandparents and the brothers and the sisters of all the kids going to the Eden School. And talking just a couple of years ago, I asked, where does he reach the most people? Is it through the school, or is it through his churches? And he reaches a lot of people through his churches, but he reaches more people through the school.
The school is kindergarten through 12th grade.
Okay.
And so they have about 600 students there.
And
Well, 650. Actually, I go around and count them.
right.
I give fluoride to all of them to help their
Okay.
teeth. And so I know how many fluoride
that you hand out.
they give.
And you know, one of the things that we did before we even started doing a lot with the Eden School is Jerry Rogers went down and looked at the books. We want to make sure that the school was financially stable, is a good situation. And so the General Assembly in Korea, the Presbyterian General Assembly, inspects their books. Jerry Rogers inspected the books. He has another inspection that someone else does as well. But the point being, it's very well operated. It's financially stable, and we can count on the money being handled well, so that we know that all the money that we give in scholarship goes to support a child, and that is very well spent. The Korean Church also does their financial.
I think a gentleman on session at the time named Everett Nichols asked, he says, how do you know if the money's not going for cocaine down there? Because Bolivia was known for its cocaine trade.
Right.
And so it was important that this all be vetted very carefully. And it was a very good question. So we did that. Not only was the education good, but the money was spent. It's an interesting combination between the Koreans, they're Asian, they're well disciplined, and when they handle money as if it's sacred almost. They don't waste a penny. They spend it on what it's supposed to be spent on. Whereas the Bolivians, they're so poor that if they get any money, they'll spend it. Somebody needs an operation. If they get money for education, they'll spend it on the operation. If they get money for something, they may spend it for something else. So the Bolivians have a totally different way of spending money because they're just so poor. They don't know how to manage it. So as well. So the Koreans are very discipline oriented, and they have things regimented. Well, not regimented, but it's organized.
Yes.
And the Bolivians are such wonderful people. I mean, they're so joyful and everything like that. They just don't have the resources to get the proper education. So it's a perfect combination between the Korean discipline and the Bolivian needs for education.
Right. In addition to the scholarship, what were some of the other features of the early mission program? of the mission program when we first started.
Well, so after the scholarships, then, now Margaret hadn't been down to Bolivia until the third trip. So the first trip was with Garrett Briggs, who looked at the education. The second trip was with Jerry Rogers, and that was right after 9/11 in the United States.
September.
Yes.
Yeah, Jerry Rogers offered his ticket to everyone in our Sunday school class. He says, "You want to go down?"
No one wanted to go.
No one wanted to go, not after 9/11,
Yes.
because we went on 9/27.
Sure.
And so then Margaret and Charles and John Hester got involved. John Hester.
And who is Charles?
Charles Peacock, that's right.
Okay.
Margaret's, well, he wasn't her husband then.
Right.
But they were interested in each other, as I recall.
Let's just add here, Margaret and Charles were in the choir together, and I think some romance probably developed in the
That's true.
That's right. They sat right
relationship.
across the tenor section and the alto section.
Very good. Go ahead,
And we
Bill.
both were interested in the Bolivian
Oh,
mission.
absolutely.
So we were involved early on together with that.
Well, Charles is a professor at NC State,
Correct.
and he's been involved in work that's drawn him all over the world.
Sure.
So he's interested in international
Right.
affairs. So he knew a lot about it and was interested.
Sure.
So now John Hester at that time came into the picture. He had been the head of the Raleigh area of the Haiti mission for 25 years. He had lived in Haiti for 3 years himself and knew a lot about international mission. He had also gone through all the training for medical, although he never wanted to practice in the U.S., so he never did his residency here. He never got an official U.S. MD, but he knew a lot about medicine. And so he was our advisor and counselor when we went down to Bolivia to see if we could actually have a clinic and a hospital there that would round up the bringing health care to this mission. Because we kind of dealt with the education. The Koreans built the facility. We were helping support students. We supported up to 200 students at one time. We support about 120 now. But was it good for health care? And it turned out they had 3 buildings, and John Hester said, yeah, we can do this. They didn't have any equipment. They said they had equipment. They said, oh, we have a dental room all set up. And when we went there was one cabinet with some gloves in it. That's all there was.
Well, it's interesting, the first trip. Could you describe what the first trip to Bolivia was all about? You had some nightmares to develop in terms of trying to get some equipment in and get it operational.
Well, before we could even have the first trip, we had to get the equipment there.
Correct.
To carry it down. And I was working in Washington at that time with the Department of Defense on a contract. And I went in on a Monday morning, and they said, well, what did you do over the weekend? And I said, well, our missionary from Bolivia came, and there was a cookout, and I told them about the mission. They said, we know of something that you could use, and that was the services of Crosslink International. What they do is they ship containers around the world for different types of missions. And they said, we could do that for your mission as well, and we needed to get equipment there. And so we carried or shipped up to Washington for the container chairs and tables from Peace College, from Meredith, wheelchairs, walkers, all types of equipment, other types of equipment as well.
Right. Yeah, we had some dental chairs.
That's right.
We had dental equipment.
So we had to get the container down there, and Dr. Fred Crisp had a friend who paid the $5,000 to ship the container down. But
it was Margaret's contact in Washington. Actually, they were in Falls Church, Virginia, I think.
Right.
That made it possible to get the container.
Correct.
So that's how we actually got the container there. And also we found that we could get pharmaceuticals there because they were a licensed pharmacy. And they would collect materials and supplies and prescriptions from businesses, from office practices all over the Washington area. And so we were able to actually get a lot of pharmaceuticals there.
And now, when the container arrived, what happened? I understand there were some problems.
Oh, it was held hostage.
Well, we got it there, I think, in December, and we were supposed to get there in March. Our mission team was scheduled to be there in March. We'd already signed up, we had people ready to go. But they didn't have any equipment down there for us. So,
it's hard to operate a dentist chair without suction and
Gotta have the equipment.
equipment.
So it turns out that Bolivia was one of the most corrupt, and still is one of the most corrupt governments around. Corrupt in the sense that they want to bribe for everything.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So the container was in the customs area, fenced off, couldn't get to it. Reverend Moon couldn't get to it, although it was there. And so they said for another $7,000, it only took $5,000 to get it there, all the way from Raleigh down to Eden School in Santa Cruz. But they wanted $7,000 to get it out of customs. That was going to go into the pockets of whoever the customs officials were. I knew that people in First Presbyterian Church would not like that. That doesn't seem to be good stewardship. But Reverend Moon and Dr. Nam in particular understood that this was a really important thing to be done. We needed to get that out of customs. So he asked the Sunom Church. The Sunom Church came up with the $7,000,
Okay.
got the container out of customs. Reverend Moon trucked all the things up to the Eden School within about 2 weeks. By the time we got there, they had a lot of things installed. Now in the dentistry, your daughter, Cynthia Elderkin, was one of the dentists there. Fred Crisp was another dentist, and Fred had gotten some of his friends there, but they didn't have any suction. You know, when you go like this and you have to pull all that stuff out when you're a dentist. And so we had Phil Miller here in the church, who was a contractor, and he went down to a Home Depot, their equivalent to a Home Depot, and got a shop vac, which has a suction on it,
Right.
you know. So he hooked up a hose to that, and then up to another hose, and finally got it in there. And so all the suction, this stuff, was going into a shop vac, and we had to improvise a lot of things that way. But we got it going, and it was successful that year. We also had so John Hester was the person who had medical contacts. You need a pharmacist. If you don't have a pharmacist to give out the medicine and know what medicines need to be done, no matter how many doctors you have, it's no good. You need a pharmacist along with the medicines. So John Hester knew a pharmacist, and he had a pharmacist there. And he knew Jimmy Butts, who was over at SAS Institute in Cary, and she had set up their entire clinic system over there. So she went down, Betty Ann Dorman went down, and Tracy Butler from Ernest Mott Presbyterian Church went down. Tracy knew Spanish fluently. She'd been in Puerto Rico for 10 years.
And she was an ER nurse.
Yeah, sorry, she was an
Yes,
ER nurse.
right.
Betty Ann Dorman was a registered nurse, and Jimmy Butts was a registered nurse, and John Hester had all this medical experience. So we had those 4 people on that first trip. And we didn't have any vision on the first trip. I mean, we didn't have any vision clinic. We had a lot of vision,
Yes.
but no vision clinic.
Correct.
For the first 2 trips.
Right.
Yes.
On the third trip, well, actually, our mission when we went down, that was the 4th trip. Margaret and Charles were on the 3rd trip. And let me tell you something. So we went to the senior class, and 2/3 of them were women. And they asked Margaret if, what she did. They knew, and they asked her if she was, well, so she said she worked for the state police in North Carolina. And that she taught leadership training to them. And so they were first of all, they asked whether she was carrying a gun.
No.
And she said she wasn't carrying a gun. And then they asked her, they were very curious, because 2/3 of them were women, and they wanted to know whether, you could have a profession and still have a family. So they asked her if she was married. Now, she wasn't married at the time, but she was standing right next to Charles Peacock, who she was going to marry in a year, or about a half a year from now. She said, I don't know, the right man hadn't come along yet. But they got the impression that they could, you could have a profession as a woman. And that's really important. Down there, women, and in Korea actually, women don't have very high status.
Sure.
They take care of the home, the men do everything else. In the United States, we've progressed a little further than that. So that we're bringing a lot of concepts to the Bolivian children
Right.
and the community that are worthwhile, I think, in our Christian, healthy Christian concepts.
And you know, we started our vision clinic on the third medical mission, dental mission. We started with a vision clinic. And all that happened when Crosslinks International came to Raleigh, and they gave a program on how to do a vision clinic out at Bailey Baptist Church. And I went to that, and I came to Bill and I said, I found our next clinic. This is what we can do. And you don't have to be a medical professional to help with this. And so this involved more people within the church who could actually go and provide mission services in another venue. And so we started with rudimentary tools even there the first 2 years, using a photometer to get measure eyes. We did carry an optometrist with us the first 3 years that we did that. And each year we got better and better, getting more, better tools, more volunteers to go with us. A couple of years ago we got an auto-refractor from Wake Ophthalmology that they were decommissioning, so we were able to add that to the vision clinic. And now
That's the instrument that when you go into an ophthalmologist, you look in there and you kind of get a focus on something, and that has a infrared beam that bounces off the back of your eye and tells the person approximately, pretty accurately, what your prescription should be.
Sure. Okay, so now we started off with a dental clinic. We then went to a pharmacy clinic.
Well, we had the pharmacy and the dental.
And the dental, okay.
And then we had the nurses.
And then and then we had a medical clinic, and here we've got a vision clinic. So we had 4 clinics operating there.
Right.
Who heads up these different clinics presently?
Okay, well, Fred Crisp heads up the dental clinic. And both he and Cynthia Ellerkin set out rules for how things were going to go. So we give out fluoride and everything. We give toothbrushes, toothpaste, and ever since we started, the teeth, and every time that we see people coming into the dental clinic now, the teeth of the children there at the school are much better because of the fluoride treatment and how we've taught them how to take care of their teeth along. But Fred's been the one. He's gotten all the equipment, most of the equipment, and he's got friends and connections. Okay.
And his friends as dentists and hygienists.
Right.
Go along with
we have a hygienist going there.
Sure.
Then the medical clinic has evolved. John Hester, you might want to know, we don't have that many doctors in our congregation. So we have Mike Yarborough. We've had some others, but they've not been able to go because of either they've been working or they have medical conditions themselves. It's hard to get a doctor to go unless he's retired.
Sure.
So Mike Yarborough has headed up the medical clinic recently. We have an ENT who's working at Rex Hospital, who's a friend of Mike Yarborough's. He's coming. He came the last 2 years. He's coming this next year. Leon Woodruff, who's just retired as a OBGYN person, is coming this year. They need OBGYN doctor there. We have a neonatologist who works at Duke, who's coming. And we have a pediatrician, a woman who's coming this year. So we've moved from registered nurses to people who are MDs. And the registered nurses who come, we have a couple of those, are the ones who triage, so that when all these people come, we haven't really talked about the people who come. What Margaret didn't say in terms of the vision, at the beginning it was slow because we had prehistoric equipment to work with, and it took a long time to fit things and get the prescription. But there were people who would come and stay in their car all night long before that vision clinic opened. And then sometimes they wouldn't be seen that day, so they would sleep in their car a second night or maybe even a third night waiting to be seen. So the vision clinic became one of the most sought after. People would almost, well, they wouldn't fight, but they would be really upset if they didn't get into the vision clinic.
And I believe Charles and Margaret have been the leaders of that
Right.
vision clinic.
Right. We have
Down
been,
there,
and
yeah.
we had the help of the optometrist coming for 3 years who really taught us a lot.
Sure.
And helped us see how we could run the clinic if we didn't have an optometrist or ophthalmologist there with us. So he taught us a lot for how to run the clinic and also how to dispense the glasses. We get our glasses from the Lions Club, the recycling center out of Indiana now. We've gotten them out of Virginia as well. And this year we're ordering 10,000 pairs of glasses to take with us. We have to order 5 times the number of glasses that we think we're going to need because we're going for best fit. And last year we had about 12 volunteers there.
Right.
We saw over 2,000 people. The first year we saw 400 people using rudimentary equipment, and now we've got great equipment. We've got a great process for how to run the clinic and great volunteers going who really make a difference in the lives of these people, many who have not had glasses ever. And they might be 40, 50, 60 years old. So they can't even see how to thread a needle.
Yeah.
And a lot of these ladies make their living by sewing.
And let's see, we've transitioned from just treating the students in Eden School to the parents and to the community.
Right.
Well, actually, from the very beginning, we included the neighborhood.
Oh, you
Yeah.
had the entire community.
We always we make sure that we treat all the students.
Sure.
We do that first.
Right.
But they're only there in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So and not on the weekends. So we work Saturday. We used to work 5 days. We'd set up one day. We'd work on Saturday, then we work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we'd have a day off to recuperate and then come back to Raleigh.
Well, how are you?
But so a lot of the community comes in when the students aren't there.
Right. How are our services advertised, and how do you separate those that are not needing treatment from the ones that come in for treatment?
For the vision clinic, the students are pre-screened
Okay.
before we get there. So
Okay.
only the students who need glasses
Okay.
are sent to the vision clinic, and we will see them early on. So we're able to treat them first. And for students who really have a significant vision problem and we can't fit them with a pair of glasses that we have because they come from little children up through high school, then we have had the good fortune to be able to take their measurements of their eyes, and we bring their prescription back to Raleigh, and we have those glasses made here, and we take them back with us the following year, so that those children get special glasses that are just for them. But we only do this for those school children, and we've done it for one of the custodians there who had such a significant vision problem that we could never fit her. And so we made special glasses for her too.
All right.
Let me point out, these are donated. The services are donated from people in Raleigh who,
And
it's
it-
Chris Thaxton,
Chris Thaxton.
Beth Thaxton's husband, who makes the glasses, and we send them back.
We have
them
usually
back.
about a dozen pair like that.
Good.
And it's so heartwarming when these children get their glasses the following year. But we have to wait a year because we can't send them down because of the tariff
Yeah.
and the problems that are incurred with the tariff. But they're happy to have them when they get them.
It's an eye-opening experience for them, I'm sure.
In many ways, it really is. I
Yes.
mean, they've never seen the leaves on the trees.
Right.
They can't see the blackboard. They can't read their schoolwork.
Sure.
So they can't perform. And now they can perform. And it makes all the difference in the world for them.
I'm sure. Let's talk a little bit about how do you get volunteers to go down on these mission trips. we have people outside of our own congregation that go. How do you attract all the talent that you have been able to attract?
When I come back, we tell the story for number one. Coming back and just telling the story. Last year we had a congregational meal, and we told the story after the meal, so people can see the pictures and hear the story from the volunteers. So that ignites an interest there. And then we start going to see people, asking people that we think will have an interest in it. We publicize the need for volunteers, but we also go and ask them and really keep following up, because you got to start planning in advance. Who's going to go?
Sure.
And can you got to fill all the slots for your clinics,
Yes.
whether it be vision or dental or medical, the pharmacy, you got to make sure all of them are staffed.
As soon as one trip is over, you start immediately planning for the next. Yes,
You
right.
do your after-action
Right.
report and start planning
Sure.
the next one.
So sometimes I just feel as though maybe God has come down and touched people.
Oh, absolutely.
One story, even though Cindy Elderkin's hadn't been able to go down to the dental clinic, she does have people coming to her own dental clinic here in Raleigh, and one of our key and excellent interpreters, we take interpreters down with us, was one of her patients. Now, I have this vision that as Cindy was drilling her teeth, she was saying, "You want to go to the eating school, right?" But that isn't the way it was. She just told her how what a neat experience it was. And so it's word of mouth. People who've been there before tell somebody else. And then they say, "Oh, that's neat. There are a lot of people who want to volunteer, but they don't know where to go. And they don't know if it's safe to go abroad. Though they want to go, they want to participate, they want to reach out to other people as Christians, but they don't know how to do it." So this is one way, and I think that's an important mission of this mission, is to help people in this church and in the community of Raleigh reach out in a way that they wouldn't normally be able to do.
The best thing about this particular mission is, one, is a very stable mission. And we know that when we get there, the Reverend Moon and the Korean church will take care of us, and the Eden School will take care of us. They will provide for our needs. We're going to be safe. They provide transportation to and from the school every day from the hotel. The hotel is nice. Not many missions do you get to go on that you actually stay in a very nice hotel. So the accommodations are very good. The Koreans provide all our meals for us in the evenings.
The food is clean and it's very good.
Oh, the meals are wonderful. And then at the school, the Bolivians prepare meals for lunch and serve them for us. So everything is taken care of, and we know that they're well organized when we get there. So all we got to do is start setting up our clinic and getting ready to go. Reverend Moon has done all the advertising for the people to know about the clinics. So there will be more people there than we can ever serve. There's such a huge demand. And they know the Americans are coming and that they will get good service. Reverend Moon said last year, you can be wealthy and you will get treated poorly, or you can be poor and you're going to get treated poorly. Whether you're going to the doctor or to the dentist or to the optometrist. That's just the culture within Bolivia. It's a culture of corruption.
Yes.
But they know when the Americans come, they're treated with respect, they're given their best, and that they'll get good care while we're there. So they will wait for us. And when we get to the school every day, there will be a long line of people waiting for us. And Reverend Moon gives out tickets for people so that those that are in line, he manages all those folks that are coming, so that knowing that we can't see everyone, we'll see all that we can. But it's impossible to see everyone. So he's given out the tickets and he manages those lines, and he's very strict about it. He'll have someone at the door managing those tickets as well. We'll have check-ins where people will hand in their ticket and they're actually We fill out a form for each one, and they carry it through the clinics. And so we can trace that individual all the way through and know what their needs are. But you have to have a process for managing all those folks as they come through, going into the various clinics and how they get there.
And you mentioned once before the numbers that have changed over the years, the number of patients that you've treated. Would you mind giving those again? When you started in 2000, you were only probably treating the dental cases.
Yeah, the dental and medical.
And
so
medical.
we were down around 2,000 maybe.
Okay.
People that we saw.
And what are
right now? Last year we saw 4,400 people.
So double what?
2,000 of them were seen by the vision clinic.
Yeah.
With dental, we have 4 modern chairs.
Sure.
We have a gal coming up from Brazil who's an excellent dentist. And they make sure that we have dentists there. And the neat thing is that we've set up the clinic in such a way that Eden School now can permanently hire people to work there. So that, in any mission, you have things, they say, well, if a person is dying on the street, you've got to fix them up right away. You don't ask questions, you just fix them. But then there's another portion when you're for mission, is that you development, so that you help them to stand on their own, so they'll be able to stand on their own even if you're not there.
Correct.
And I mean, we don't, in any mission, you don't expect the mission to go on and on and on forever. That's what happened when American missionaries went to Korea. They eventually had to pass it off to the Koreans, and then the Koreans pass it off to the Bolivians right now.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of trying to pass it off to the Bolivians so that they can do this on a permanent basis later on. So we've developed the clinics, both the vision, the medical. We're working on the medical right now, and the dental, so that they can carry on by themselves.
And for the vision clinic, we'll leave the glasses that we don't use during the clinic period, we'll leave down there, and they can have an optometrist then use those glasses during the year. And that's just started as far as the optometrist coming on campus and being able to use those glasses and use the autorefractor.
Good.
So you want to create sustainability.
Sure.
And we as Americans need to be able to exit out at some point
Correct.
in time.
Yes.
There's such a huge need that I can foresee us staying a good while longer.
Right.
But we can also see that progress that's happened. And for the medical, they're looking at ways now to have surgery. And they've got a surgery room constructed, and Dr. Yarborough was instrumental with that. And now they're bringing down more doctors that will be able to look at how to build out that surgery component. And so that can start occurring. We haven't been doing surgeries on any real basis. They did small surgery last year, but not serious surgery. But they're looking at how to build that out. So that's that next component, and Dr. Yarborough is getting more supplies and equipment, fundraising for that, so that those can be bought in Bolivia, and then when they get there, they will be able to provide more medical services.
The continuation of these services by locals is one success story of this. Do you have other success stories, individuals who became interested in the dental profession or medical profession and are actually in school now to pursue this as a career? That is the Bolivian.
Susanna Moon, the daughter of Reverend Moon, originally saw dentistry as, because our dental clinic was the first clinic set up, and she saw Fred Crisp and Cynthia Elderkin and others working in the dental clinic, and so that inspired her to be a dentist. So she went to Peace College, she went to the University of Pennsylvania after that through dental school, and she's now a professional dentist. We also had another student, the daughter of Nurse Lee. Nurse Lee is the person who watches over us while we're down there, and she's Korean.
And she runs the clinics during the year.
Yeah. But her daughter went also to Peace College and is interested in dentistry, although she may wind up being an optometrist. So she's not quite sure what she wants to do yet. So those are young children who have seen what we've done and say, "Oh, this is really neat. You can really help people this way," and they want to help people. If you talk about individuals, I mean, there was one person who came to Margaret's the vision clinic, and they couldn't see anything in front of them. I mean, they could see movement of hands. By the time that person left, they could read the clock on the wall that was 40 feet away.
That person had been told that this was at birth that he wouldn't be able to see, but when he got older, he should be able to see. And this young man was 26, and he had to be guided into the clinic. And we couldn't get a reading on the autorefractor, and Charles takes those hardest cases. We have a pew for him, and he works with each one and goes through those really high number of glasses that we've got, the high prescriptions, I should say. And it kept, it was just trying one by one. And truly, when Charles finished with him, he could read the clock on the wall, and he could walk out, and he didn't have a cane. And that's just unbelievable that that happens. But it happens more times than you would think. There was a young mother that came in. She had broken her glasses the year before. She had 2 little children, and her mother had to guide her in. And Charles worked with her and got a pair of glasses for her, and her mother said now she can care for her children. She couldn't even see her children. And she could see. You just have such moments. One lady came in, she slept outside all night in the rain. We didn't see her until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and she got her glasses, and she just burst into tears. And Beth Cox was with us at that time, and she brought a Bible written in Spanish. And she was able to read the Bible. It was a tearful moment to see them celebrate her being able to read. She could read the Bible, and she was just so filled that this had happened, and she had the opportunity to be able to read the gospel.
So this is really Christianity in action.
Oh, absolutely.
It really is.
Right, absolutely.
When we in the dental clinic, there was one example this was a while back, but when this fella came in, he had 12 impacted teeth, 12 that had to be pulled. So an orthodontist who was there pulled all 12 teeth. And he said, "Oh, I feel really sorry for that man, because 12 teeth is a lot of teeth to have pulled." That man came up and gave the orthodontist a hug at the end, because it had taken all the pain out of his
absolutely.
mouth. This last time in the surgical unit for the medical, our ENT doctor saw a melanoma on a woman's nose and also on another woman's cheek, and he took both of those off. Now they didn't realize it, but he completely saved their lives. Those melanomas would have taken them down within a couple of years. So, I mean, it's a huge benefit for the people down there.
It's also a safety feature where our bus driver, when we were coming from the airport to the hotel, oh my gosh, he was
driving the bus.
He was driving the bus, and he would stop so close to cars and slam on brakes, and the luggage would go forward. And it was sort of a harrowing experience. We got to the school, and we found out the next day he was the first one in line for glasses.
He was blind.
He couldn't see very well.
He couldn't see to drive.
We made sure he had 2 pairs.
He left with 2 pairs. And he was a great driver after that, but he couldn't see.
Sure.
And we have lots of taxi drivers that come through, bus drivers, people that are in ordinary jobs. They need them for everything they do. And we have story after story like that.
These are fascinating stories. I wish we could go on and on with them. But Bill, you said something that it sticks in my mind. We can't continue this forever. What, and we, of course, I think what we're doing is trying to transition from U.S. volunteers going down to to developing the talent locally to take over the clinics and operate them as we back out, so to speak. Am I correct? Is that what the future of the...
I think that's what we're looking at.
Right.
I don't know how close that's going to be to now, how many years it'll take. So the dental clinic has been set up. They have good equipment. They can... See, the problem is, if you don't have good equipment, you can't attract good people. And so we have the good equipment now, and we have been able to attract good dentists down there. We don't have the surgical equipment down there, and we don't have the medical equipment down there. And Dr. Yarborough is trying to set up a fund that people have contributed to. Some from our church, but like a third of the people who go down are from our church. 2/3 are professionals who are in the Raleigh community, go to like West Raleigh or Ernest Myatt or other churches in the community, but they donate to this mission. So First Presbyterian Church is like a mustard seed, or it's like a crystal that
Sure.
that has all these other groups crystallizing around it to make this mission go. So, one of the problems down there is that Reverend Moon wants people to be working with him. He doesn't have much money. The Sunam Church, the Sunam Church has changed leadership. So their new minister is not so excited about international mission. So the Sunam Church with Dr. Nam and Dr. An, who started this and got us involved, they've backed out. So we're the only ones now really supporting that mission. There are some members from the Sunam Church who are still excited about the mission, and they're trying to support the church, but it doesn't have the institutional support behind it.
Also, Dr. Nam passed away a couple of years ago, and he was the real strength of support at the Sunam Church for this mission too.
Right.
So that had an impact.
So the General Assembly still supports Reverend Moon, but Reverend Moon will retire in about 8 years or 7 years from now. So there's a question it really needs to transition to the leadership in Bolivia, which will be an interesting situation. Although Reverend Moon, Santa Cruz, Bolivia is his home. So he will stay there and he will be an advisor, but at 65 he has to retire by Korean standards. So that'll be 7 years from now that he will have to step down. I don't know if they'll try to bring another Korean in, but they have at least 4 or 5 nicely established ministers. They're all Bolivian ministers. All the teachers at the Eden School are Bolivian. So it's just Reverend Moon and his wife Maria who are the Koreans there, the outside influence. So they're trying to pass this off eventually. What Dr. Yarborough is trying to do, so we have the dental, the clinic taken care of. I think they can transition.